From Studio 1A in Tampa, Florida, comes a talk show that really feels your pain and tells you like it is. We love America and all that freedom-loving Americans want to protect. Live from coast to coast and on your radio, it's For the People with Keith Allen.
We'll help you survive this thing called life. We're for the people. Whatever your source of stress or strife, for the people is there.
Hello, Mr. and Mrs. America. I am Keith Allen and proudly welcoming you to this Tuesday's edition of For the People. It's June the 27th, 2017, and we're going to start off with talking about health care and a bill, according to the CBO, that's going to leave 22 million people uninsured. Now, in fact, if that's true, then that would actually be, if it's true, it would be worse than Obamacare. So I just could not imagine people wanting to pass this, and if six Republicans right now are standing in the way and not allowing the bill to go through, I'm not surprised. But how accurate are these numbers anyway? Now, the CBO coverage estimates yet another problem for Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who unveiled the legislation last Thursday. By Friday afternoon, he was facing public statements of opposition from 5 GOP senators, like I mentioned, and then 3 more defections that he can afford and still win approval for the legislation over the United Democrat opposition. Others have expressed concern. Now, the White House immediately slammed the report in a short statement. The CBO has consistently proven it could not accurately predict how health care legislation will impact insurance coverage, the White House said in a statement last evening. The history of inaccuracy has demonstrated by its flawed report on coverage premiums and predicted deficit arising out of Obamacare reminds us that its analysis must not be trusted blindly. The 22 million additional people without coverage under the Senate proposal is just a hair better than the 23 million who would be left without insurance under the measure the House approved last month. The Budget Office has estimated. President Donald Trump has called the House version mean and called on Senate Republicans to approve legislation with more heart. Of the 22 million, 15 million of them would have no insurance next year, the nonpartisan Budget Office said. Dean Heller of Nevada, who faces perhaps the toughest 2018 reelection race of any Senate Republican and who has said he can't stop a health care package that cuts Medicaid like the GOP plan and takes coverage from tens of millions of Americans and tens of thousands of Nevadians. Folks, there's trouble with this bill. It was dead on arrival the first time. They got to work this out. This is a big problem. Obviously, if the numbers don't mesh up, they don't measure up, and how much stock you put into the CBO, which there has been inaccuracies, and when they measured the first time around for Obamacare, the numbers were skewed. And, of course, everything that they were boasting was inaccurate and how it's imploded and blown up. Did you hear just today that Blue Cross is pulling out of 3 additional states today? Many more people on without insurance and can't even pay the premiums today. So it is a problem that Republicans and Democrats simply need to work out, and they need to get it done. Now, today, on the House side, we got Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House. He's saying he thinks that all this is going to be worked out.
So I believe that they'll get this done, and I believe they'll get it done because they said they would get it done. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, are you taking the temperature of your members while this debate goes on in the Senate, particularly the Freedom Caucus? Are you getting their impressions of the changes as this goes along, or are you just going to wait until the final bill?
Yeah, we just don't know what the final bill is going to look like. So all of our members are just waiting and seeing what the Senate does. We all have opinions on what the best possible policy is. And yes, the reconciliation system is a little frustrating because we can't put all the bills in there we would want. We're doing medical liability reform later this week, for example. But our members are just waiting to see in a constructive way what the Senate can produce, and then we'll make the decision after they do that.
Now, the Senate bill would roll back much of his health care, everything that he proposed. The statute in the Obamacare law pressures people to buy insurance by imposing a tax penalty on those who don't. Now, the Republican legislation would repeal that penalty, effectively erasing Obama's so-called individual mandate. The House approved its legislation in May, and it would require insurers to boost premiums by 30% for those whose coverage lapsed. Yeah, I wish it wasn't one of these things that we had to worry about, but so many depend on health care. It affects us all in one way or another. Well, Newt Gingrich, I like a lot what he has to say, and I think he's right on the money. Democrats who claim thousands of people will die if Obamacare is repealed are lying to try to keep the health care bill alive, former House Speaker Newt Gingrich said today. He says, I think the Democrats irresponsibly is totally unbounded. Gingrich told Fox and Friends program the notion that the Republicans want to kill people. It's almost pathetic that the Democratic Party has no new ideas, no new solutions, takes no responsibility for the disaster that they passed with Obamacare. All they have is a wild charge that no serious American is going to look at as an actual problem. Vermont Independent Senator Bernie Sanders, who ran in 2016, as you remember, the Democratic presidential candidate, commented that if Obamacare is repealed, the horrible and unspeakable truth is thousands of our fellow Americans every single year will die. Well, first of all, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. Okay? It's just a reality. People need health care, and they need affordable health care. It's not been affordable under the Obamacare. It's imploded. And Democrats know it. I don't know why they'd like to go down with a sinking ship, but it's sinking, and who are they kidding? So Newt, I think his timely words make a lot of sense. I mean, Gingrich said we have 8,000 federal community health centers in this country. They don't even count as part of the bill. 8,000 places where people can get help. Folks, this is America. You can get help if you need it. You can call 911 if you have an emergency, and if you have an emergency situation, you can get into a hospital. Gingrich also said that there are some misconceptions when it comes to the House Republican health care bill. He says, after all, the news media talking about cutting Medicaid, see, that cuts to the heart of seniors when you talk about cutting Medicaid, because they rely upon it, obviously. He said he did some research. It actually goes up 20% over the next 10 years. Now think about that. All of this talk about cut. No, it's a 20% increase over the next 10 years, so half the Republican problem, or more than half of its communications problem. They're actually putting 20% more into Medicaid over the next decade. That's a serious effort in the right direction. You need people like Gingrich out there. I don't know why Trump doesn't utilize the prowess of Newt Gingrich, because he articulates it very, very accurately and makes it very easy to understand the numbers. And it's all about the numbers, because you're talking trillions of dollars. But that kind of just breaks it down. It is a really great move in the right direction, obviously. But the Democrats, they just want to steer you as if the Republicans, the bad Republicans, are trying to take all your health care away, and all the seniors are going to be heading to the graveyard cemetery today, because grandma's going over. Was it some senator had some kind of commercial where grandma was going to be dumped over the mountain? It's just ridiculous, and bringing back these commercials. But these are the tactics of the left. They don't want to take any self-responsibility, even though the ship is going down. And they're tied to it. They're tied to it. These were the people that voted for it in the first place. It wasn't the Republicans. So don't get angry. Don't be angry when you hear a program like this talk about it. I'm just saying, let's fix it. Let's stop squabbling and making up things and sitting there and pointing fingers right now. There's no time for it right now. If you were really so interested, honest to goodness, with these poor folks that are suffering out there or worry and anxiety, if you don't think that really makes people anxious and upset, of course it does. But, excuse me, you're not in power to begin with. And you're not going to ever be in power anytime soon, Dems, if you don't get your act together. Because your health care act did not work. It imploded. So if anything, you could actually be the savior behind it. And you got to remember Obama's words. And what did Obama say on the way out about health care? Well, if you can come up with something better, you can put your name on it. If you can more affordable prices, if you can bring down the cost and insure more Americans, then I'll be for it. Well, let's do it. Yeah, don't repeal, don't replace, unless honest to goodness that you can say to the American people in the camera that you can bring the cost down. But you got to remember something, folks. If you have a true emergency, you can always dial 911 and you can go to the hospital. Now, there are some people that I've heard that have exhausted 911 and the hospital just does not come out. Well, because you may have cried wolf one too many times. I know people that do that. Don't do that unless it's truly an emergency. And then sometimes you have to move if you've worn that out. But, it is something that is bothersome to people who have, are ailing in age and have something wrong with them, and they hear this news about health care and whether or not they're going to be booted out of a facility or they're not going to be able to get the adequate care they need. I can understand people's anxiety levels going up, and they don't need it. They don't need more of that. And I think it would be better off at this time right now until they can work everything out to just simply shut the news off if you're concerned about all of these things until they can work it out. But I believe they'll work it out. And I believe the optimism coming from the voice of House Speaker Paul Ryan, it's something that Donald Trump heavily campaigned on. I mean, this was one of his campaign stunt promises that he would do this. And this is a must that has to be done. And I think it's a must truly for Republicans to work things out and get this done, because I'm telling you, this is going to be prime fodder in 2020. If they can't do this, they can't work this out and get this done so it really makes real sense for America. They're going to have a foot in the door, and they're going to reintroduce another version, if not the whole Obamacare. And then you're really going to be screwed. Come on, Republicans and Democrats, stop lying. Stop scaring Americans that don't need to be scared anymore. Amazing how frustrated people are these days and nervous about it, especially when you're sick, especially when you got somebody making a decision to go into a nursing home, wondering if you're going to wheel them in the front door and not sure if they're going to be able to even accept them because mean Donald Trump is going to dump them out. That's what a lot of the left would have you believe, that these mean Republicans, that's what they're going to do. They don't care about you. They just care about themselves. So hopefully somebody speaks up real soon and gets people convincing a little bit and works this stuff out, even if they have to keep the lights on all night and get together, make coffee or whatever it is. But hash this thing out. Let's get this thing done. And everybody could come out a winner on this. It would be a bipartisan effort to get it done. And I really wish to God that whatever concessions can be made will be made, and whatever needs to be done. The phone calls have been great with Donald Trump making the calls, but whether he needs another, trip up to Capitol Hill himself, whatever he can do, and whatever both sides can do right now to be heroes, because really